It was the summer of 2004.
呼吸，别动，就好了。
When Liu Fen checked herself into hospital.
行了吗？
For weeks now, she had endured sharp pains in her abdomen and detected blood in her urine.
什么？
The medical tests revealed results that were far from routine.
医生，请你马上来看看这个 X 光片，这个特别的不寻常。我从来没有看过这个。
Shray Knight had a mystery ailment that eventually shocked the entire Chinese medical fraternity.
医生，我到底怎样了？
The story of Shray Knight and her mystery ailment began when she was still a baby. The idyllic mountainous surrounds of Luoshuidong village in Songming County appear the most unlikely place to hold up the dark, despairing story of a lady who happens to be the embodiment of a Chinese population policy gone horribly wrong. It's 2004. Shray Knight, then 29 years old, had come to experience piercingly sharp pains in her abdomen.
天天病，天天吃药啊，都是去住院，都是因为一病的时候，比着多长时间住院就发现真个，就天天就是想了，自己猜是也不是点事呢，猜想了是比较严重的一种病了嘛，嘎。
Before the illness surfaced, Shray Knight was a cheerful woman. She worked on the family farm where she lived with her husband and her 7-year-old son. They planted potatoes and maize along with other vegetables. It was a humble life, but in its simplicity, a happy one. Until the pains grew even more intense and unbearable.
老公，痛死我了！老公。
有一天起来嘎，早上嘛起来上厕所嘛，发现血尿，就气了，天天就是那几天吧，天天就气了，就是，非常的难过，就哭啊这样的，就讲好不好的人咋个会血尿？还要叫去昆明这个大医院头检查。
At Kunming, a series of X-rays done on Shray Knight revealed the unthinkable. Embedded within her body were sewing needles, no less than 27 of them. The shocking discovery further revealed that some needles were sitting precariously close to major organs and arteries. The cause of Shray Knight's mystery illness had been unraveled. But what baffled doctors was how she managed to survive for so long with those needles lodged in her body.
趁他结婚还是那个小男孩，对吧？然后呢，在04年偶然间发现了全程血尿，然后才发现了他这么多，就是身体内拥有27枚钢针，这在世界上可能是第一次出现这种情况。
While doctors deliberated over strategies for surgery, for Shray Knight, the revelation of the needles added a further dimension of pain, piercing not just her anatomy, but also her very consciousness. For 30 years, Liu Fen lived a quiet, contented life. much like any other farmer's wife or daughter in her village. Till doctors discovered 27 sewing needles lodged inside her body. An event that transformed her life from ordinary to awful. Shray Fen's visit to the hospital may have uncovered the cause of her mystery ailment. But in a society deeply rooted in money and materialism, Shray Fen simply didn't stand a chance.
还是把地也给卖了吧。
我们把能卖的都卖了，还是不够。
Surviving as small-time farmers do, on a meager income, the family had no means to pay for a surgery as complicated as the one doctors proposed. Back home, Shray Fen continued to be haunted by the very thought of alien objects within her. She feared the end was near.
妈妈，我心。
让妈妈和你一起做吧。这可能是妈妈最后一次。
他一直就想着他怕活不了几天。我们知道这种情况了嘛，哥哥心里都是非常难过，他天天哭啊，就想着自己是无法活下去了，这么多在这身在真的是无法取出来。
医生又讲着是，有时间随时都会有些症也跑到致命的汽车，危害了嘛嘎，可以一下下就致命呀这些，自己就想了讲，知道针在一身，就怕一扎个扭啊，一扎个动，刮一跤啊，一下子戳了自己的性命就一下子别得。
The most painful needle was the one in her heart. Shray Fen pondered on possible scenarios from her childhood. Shray Fen's birth was greeted with much anticipation. Although the celebrations ceased, the second her gender was revealed. Prejudices against female children are deeply rooted in Chinese culture.
你大胆，竟敢坐在这里！这张桌子是给男人用的。
Shray Fen's birth sparked a blaze of fury within the family.
把这个臭丫头拉走，看了不顺眼。
他可是你的孩子，你忘了吗？
你敢顶嘴？你这个臭女人，丢了咱们家的脸，没有用的女人，没有用的你。
She and her mother bore the burden of blame for the son the family never had.
就是奶奶、父亲、母亲他们之间的关系不太好了，一是因为嫌弃我是个女孩，他们的关系才比较的合不拢了嘛。
There is a saying in China that women are like maggots in the rice, unwanted, unwelcome, and of questionable value. Throughout successive dynasties in China's long history, men have dominated the social hierarchy. Glorified as the breadwinners of the family, male offspring are regarded as the vanguard of society, upon whom the honorable task of carrying on the family line is bestowed. Sons therefore become heirs to the family fortune, and are duty-bound to serve as guardians of their elderly parents. They are a private pension plan for every parent. Daughters, on the other hand, are married off, and bringing them up is a loss-making exercise in a strict economic sense. The one-child policy was implemented by the Chinese government in 1979 in an attempt to control spiraling population growth. What was meant to aid China led to the extermination of an estimated 50 million women. This, according to a World Health Organization report in 1997.
如果是在可以多子女的话呢，他生了个女孩不高兴嘛，顶多就不高兴，或者是怎么给他受气。但是现在的话，如果是只生一个，他就涉及到他选择，所以说恐怕就逼着他，我说是这个政策就逼着他，必须这个女孩消失，他才可能有生第二个的权利的时候，这个女孩相对来说就不幸了，是这样的。所以说这个在这个案件中的这么一种查证这么一种行为，就会产生。
No one had foreseen that such detached social engineering policies would be responsible for the gruesome deaths of millions of innocent baby girls.
我们真的是被这件事情烦了很久。
我必须知道这是谁干的，我要知道为什么。
Shray Knight had suspected her condition was the result of an attempted infanticide. She remained troubled by some burning, unanswered questions.
但是你得给我们你的邻居跟你家人的电话号码啊，好不好？啊，就这样。
那个就是讲想起来有这多真嘛，想了都是医生瞧瞧都是讲是人为的嘛，因为就回想出那才小时候身上指定也出来过一颗针嘛，嘎。讲那些记者就来了嘛，就去问警察，所以是警察就是讲来，他们要来查瞧瞧。
The story of Shray Knight and the 27 needles inside her hit the headlines in China and pierced the public conscience. No less than 27 sewing needles were lodged inside Shray Knigh's body, some precariously close to and threatening her major organs. When confronted with the case, the police didn't quite know where to begin until they received a tip-off.
谢谢您，顾先生。如果有什么疑问，请给我的部门来个电话。好，就这样，谢谢您。邻居们都说，他爷爷和奶奶知道第二个孙是女的，非常不满。
所以，他们就把气出在他的身上。
一旦把那女孩给去了，就可以重新开始。
可惜，这女孩偏偏死不了。
Following their new lead, police uncovered details of Shray Knigh's troubled childhood.
我当了30几年警察，从没遇过这种事。
我也是。那我们应该从哪开始啊？
The prime suspects in the investigation were Shray Knigh's paternal grandparents. They had very openly expressed their disappointment in not having a grandson.
你这个没用的东西，什么都做不好。
这个老太婆，我这次又做错了什么？
亏我还想抱个男孙，当初都是我的错，早知道你这么没用，就不让你进门。
But the problem was, the grandparents had died more than 10 years ago, leading to an ultimate dead end.
死人是不能复活的。唉，
爷爷奶奶有去世掉，没讲因为是20多年的这个案子了嘛，也比较难查。 查下来了嘛，也非常的困难，我们就讲，也就不追究了，结果也就以后就别追究了。
For now, the most crucial task at hand was to give Shray Knight a fighting chance, as her life hung in a delicate balance. Surgery to remove just a single needle would endanger her life. Having to remove 27 would be an operation of epic proportions, fraught with enormous risk. The doctors would have to decide on the lesser of two evils, to operate and attempt to save her life, while factoring the fact that the very process could result in her demise.
真的危害性呢，就是说，第一个，它比较在我们头颅的正中方向刺入颅内，刺入颅内以后呢，下面是一根叫很重要的血管，我们就从片子上、从影像学上分析啊。现在如果把这个针取出来，它不就一个孔吗？血管上有个孔，它不就会产生大出血吗？所以当时我们也在考虑，这根针怎么取，或者取的方位。然后我们在术前也做了相关检查，出来的这个动眼神经。
Liu Fen's fate rested on the skill and composure of her surgeons. In the meantime, this was decided to be the most probable scenario that started the whole thing. Upset with the gender of their grandchild, Liu Fen's grandparents decided to play God and take matters into their own hands. Because of the one-child policy, Liu Fen's parents were restricted from having another child. It was therefore deemed that Liu Fen's demise was the only solution towards fulfilling her grandparents' longing for a male heir.
我们也通过相关的专家讨论和分析，认为啊，我们就说认为可能考虑是在罗翠芬在她出生以后，在她幼小的年龄当中，可能这纯属推测啊，就是有人给她扎进去的。
The needles were most likely to have been pierced through the fontanelle, a soft opening in the skull that narrows as one ages, closing up eventually.
30多年前，也就是70年代末期，或者是80年代初期，在云南这个偏僻的地方，可能意识方面，人的意识方面。就说再加上可能一些个其他因素嘛，带偏见，对人的偏见，就是对性别歧视的偏见，可能这是最主要因素。因为她是个女孩，特别是在农村女孩的时候，可能劳动能力啊，或者是传统思想什么连续香火啊这些问题，在着重，再加上。其他因素可能出现的。
我想呢，这桩事情是因为是重男轻女，他爷爷奶奶们是什么人做呢？除了针在他身上呢，几乎还是他的亲人。因为外面的人呢，也爱他小弟弟、小娃也比他扯混，也不会做。我想呢，就是爷爷奶奶他们那个出了针。
According to studies on anthropology and demography,the natural sex ratio of newborns is assumed to be about 105 males to every 100 females. Such figures in China have gone askew, due largely to the culture's preconceived biases against female offspring. In 2009, there were 120 newborn males for every 100 females in China. That's according to the State Population and Family Planning Commission. Rapid advancements in technology have also brought about a broader use of ultrasounds, leading to what has been suggested as a rise in gender-selective abortions. The tradition of killing girls is a blight which is deeply ingrained in Chinese society, occurring even before the advent of modern technologies.
你看，我们说女孩是陪嫁货。是陪嫁货，因为是要嫁出去的，是别人的人，是帮别人养，而男孩才是自己的人，是这样的。而在这种选择中，我们可以谴责他把女孩当成陪嫁货，而 不是大公无私的为人类培养，但是这个显然他的考量，如果他赔钱，我们每个人都会在现实中会这样考量，赔钱的事儿我少做，赚钱的事儿我多做。
The entire surgical procedure saw Liu Fen in and out of hospital several times. The excruciating process dragged on a total of 2 years. Today, all the needles in the more dangerous places have been removed. There are still some lodged in her legs. Liu Fen's health has since improved, although the psychological scars remain.
恨呢，有怨恨呢，有那些打呢，几个月就被人家下种毒手，自己想想就是想了就恨，哪个有这个核心会下种毒手？个个们都是拉疼自己的娃娃嘎，一小个，但是就有他们这种人有那核心的来下种毒手，非常的怨恨。
By 2020, more than 24 million Chinese men of marrying age could find themselves without spouses, according to the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. This is by far the most serious demographic problem faced by the country's population of 1.3 billion. Recognizing future repercussions, China has started taking baby steps to narrow the gender imbalance, raising hopes that no more girls would have to suffer the same fate as Liu Fen. At an age when most girls prepare for their first day of high school, a young Cambodian girl's life was being derailed by an act of betrayal from the very person who ought to have been a wellspring of love and care, her mother. Shray Knight was just 14 when she was robbed of her innocence and her childhood interrupted. Modern-day Cambodia has risen from decades of war, turmoil and a self-inflicted Holocaust that has left a legacy of horror. In part, it's replaced its ashen past with the promise of a developing economy that ranks among the fastest growing in Southeast Asia. Like many of its neighbors, private sector and foreign direct investments have bolstered the country's wealth, and Cambodia now proudly wears a glossy new identity amidst an aura of hope. But only just. Sadly, the growing affluence is not replicated beyond Cambodia's cities and industrial townships. While urban Phnom Penh projects an image of wealth and modernity, little has changed in the lives of rural Khmer over the last decade. Hidden in ramshackle shadows, most Cambodian families lead a hard-scrabble existence, earning just $1 a day, or even less. Despite the abject poverty that surrounded her, Shray Knight would have given anything to keep the status quo, if she had only known what the future held in store for her. Unfortunately, her mother had to escape the clutches of mounting debt, and in the most desperate of measures, she chose to barter Shray to strangers, and to a nightmarish life into the abhorrent world of child prostitution. Shray Knight first arrived at Phnom Penh's notorious red light area, in a place with the infamous moniker of the Anarchy Building. Initially, she was treated fairly well. Her first few days saw her being fed with ample meals, along with small doses of deceit. She even landed a job selling drinks.
ថ្ងៃដំបូងដែលខ្ញុំទៅដល់ផ្ទះហ្នឹងខ្ញុំមានមិត្តភក្តិខ្ញុំម្នាក់ដែរនៅក្នុងផ្ទះហ្នឹងប៉ុន្តែម្ចាស់បនហ្នឹងរបៀបគេឃើញយើងនៅក្មេងគេឃើញសាច់យើងស្អាតណាគេខំយកចិត្តយើងទិញកៅអៅថ្មីឲ្យយើងញ៉ាំរបស់ឆ្ងាញ់ហើយមុនដំបូងគេអត់ទាន់និយាយប្រាប់យើងអីទាំងអស់ហើយក៏យើងអត់ដឹងថាយើងទៅហ្នឹងគឺធ្វើអីដែរគ្រាន់តែយើងដឹងថា
But there were signs that something else was going on, and she would have to do much more than just sell drinks. The realization set in when she found herself a helpless prisoner under lock and key in a cesspool of vice.
ទៅសបាយទៅលេងដូចទៅសួរសុខទុក្ខគេអញ្ចឹងយើងអត់ដឹងថាយើងទៅធ្វើអីទេពី3ថ្ងៃដំបូងគេអត់ទៅខ្ញុំអត់ទាន់ដឹងថាគេថាផ្ទះហ្នឹងគេរកស្រាយគេប៉ុន្តែរយៈពេលប្រហែលជាខ្ទង់5ថ្ងៃទៅ7ថ្ងៃមួយអាទិត្យរយៈពេលមួយអាទិត្យណាពូរយៈពេលមួយអាទិត្យហ្នឹងបានខ្ញុំដឹងថាផ្ទះហ្នឹងគឺគេរកស៊ីផ្លូវភេទ
Abandoned by her mother, Shray suffered the ultimate indignity. She was reduced to a commodity in the cruel marketplace of human flesh, where the average cost of a prepubescent virginal female ranged from as low as $10 to as high as $100. In a country where agriculture and the textile trade have been traditional mainstays, the sex industry is currently estimated to rake in a staggering 6% of Cambodia's GDP. It has emerged as one of the most lucrative industries in Cambodia. Shray Knight was just one in a sea of some 15,000 to 20,000 women and children servicing the arena.
I think that there's two different issues. One is that there's a difference between the commercial sex industry, which is one form of structural injustice, and sex trafficking. And I think that prostitution creates a veil of perception about what sex trafficking really is, because it paints a veil that women have choices and are involved in prostitution voluntarily, as opposed to the young women that we work with that are coerced, tricked, kidnapped, or forced into the sex trade.
James Pond runs a non-profit organization that rehabilitates trafficked sex workers. Here at their shelter, the girls are provided with life skills, academic education, and holistic counseling. Activists like James are fervent in raising awareness of the issue of child sex slavery, in the hope that demand for child prostitutes will be quelled.
I think what drives that is the demand of men, both foreign sex tourists coming to Cambodia to have anonymous sex while they're away, as well as the local population which believes that prostitution is socially acceptable.
Cambodia has come to be known as a pervert's paradise, where prepubescent virginal girls are especially prized. In this context of cruelty, a girl like Shray Knight could have a price tag of as much as $400 for her first time. Her owners spared no pains in her preparation, ensuring maximum return on their investment. Shray Knight was sold off by her mother to free herself from the clutches of poverty. She was only 14 when she was packaged by pimps and seized into the dark depths of Cambodia's child sex industry.
ដើម្បីលុយគឺអាចធ្វើឲ្យមនុស្សម្នាក់ដើរផ្លូវខុសទាំងអស់ពួកអីមុនដំបូងគឺដើម្បីលុយទេបានម៉ាក់ខ្ញុំនាំខ្ញុំទៅអញ្ចឹងហើយខ្ញុំយល់ឃើញថាអញ្ចឹងក្មេងៗដែលនៅប្រទេសកម្ពុជាយើងអាចរងគ្រោះថ្នាក់ច្រើនជាងនឹងទៅទៀតពួកអីគឺគេដើម្បីលុយដើម្បីម៉ាក់ប៉ាគេមិនអាចអារម្មណ៍ខ្ញុំចិត្តខ្ញុំគឺខ្ញុំអត់ចង់ធ្វើប៉ុន្តែពេលដែលម៉ាក់ខ្ញុំបញ្ជូនខ្ញុំទៅនៅផ្ទះហ្នឹងគឺម៉ាក់ខ្ញុំគាត់បានខ្ចីលុយគេរយៈពេល 4-5 ខែទុកមុនដែរអញ្ចឹងទៅបើយើងអត់ចង់នៅក៏យើងធ្វើអត់បានដែរ
Mired in the heart of Phnom Penh is the sex trade, where it's estimated that 30% of the prostitutes are below the age of 18. It is an environment contextualized by perverse values, bonded in a culture. There is a widespread belief among Cambodian men that sex with a virgin has rejuvenating benefits, contributing to a man's longevity. At 14, Shray was at the pinnacle of her value, in the eyes of her captors. A fact borne out when she lost her virginity to a foreign customer, who willingly paid her pimps the princely sum of $300.
Nice girl.
How old is this one?
14. Only.
Good, good. Okay, okay.
She was a flower in full bloom.
ក៏ខ្ញុំម្នាក់ហ្នឹងគេមកប្រព្រឹត្តអំពើអញ្ចឹងគេអត់ចេះមើលឃើញកូនរបស់គេមានឬមួយក៏ក្មួយរបស់គេមានហើយយើងអញ្ចឹងកូនគេកូនយើង
While those who enter the sleaze by choice could technically leave whenever they wanted, it was a completely different story for those trafficked into the industry against their will. This is especially so when they enter the business at such a young age. Like all of them, Shray Knight became a virtual hostage, told by her agent that her earnings would be sent back home. While the extra cash would be a welcome relief, easing her mother's mounting debts, Shray Knight felt it was a meager consolation for the horror she endured on a daily basis.
យើងឈប់ឬមួយក៏យើងរត់ចេញពីផ្ទះបនហ្នឹងគេប្រហែលជាចាប់គ្នាឬមួយក៏ក្រុមអ្នកលេងអីហ្នឹងឲ្យទៅធ្វើបាបគ្រួសារយើង
In Knight's particular case, her mother was under a contract to the brothel owner, and so she owed money, and I think she was compelled to make sure that that debt was paid so that she didn't put her family in danger. As well, there was also the physical, psychological, and emotional coercion that occurs with girls that they can't run. Even though they physically could, psychologically they are so under pressure to stay there that they'll remain there.
Her daily prayers for relief and refuge is a ritual shared and repeated by every child prostitute the world over. But the future remains especially bleak for most of the Cambodian victims. Far from easing off with an improving economy, Cambodia has become a source, transit and destination country for human trafficking.
All the rest of the world know that in Cambodia they can come and they can spend money, they can buy their freedom. Our judiciary, unfortunately, is not very efficient, but the civil society is active, and also we see that some country in the region and also the international community pay a great attention to the problem of trafficking.
At times when she couldn't take the physical ordeal, her captors had their ways of coercion.
No, man, please.
For downtrodden sufferers like Shray Knight, life does hold out a slender hope. And help comes in the form of persons like Pong Chiv Kek. Pong is one of the most prominent Cambodian social activists who rallies for the rights of women and children. Action against sex trafficking has been one of her most fervent causes. Yet she and others like her face an uphill task.
Since 1970, as we face so many problems of violence, civil war, Khmer Rouge period, etc., so the morality of people are not like before 1970. They sell their own children sometimes, and people think that selling the children is something almost normal for them because they need money. So we have to work from the beginning again.
During all of her difficult times, Shray Knight, as she describes it, lost her freedom, her voice, and herself. Shray Knight entered the sex industry at the age of 14, sold to pimps by her own mother as a means to ease off the family's mounting debts. Soon she would come to endure up to 20 customers a day. Each would contribute an emotional scar so deep as to cut through her very being. They would take a lifetime to heal. Somali Mom is one of the most fervent campaigners against what she sees as a grave injustice against women. And she knows the plight of victims from first-hand experience. Somali is a former victim of child sex trafficking.
A lot of the people, they didn't understand it. They come to me, they say, Somali, now we go and saving the girl and saving that and saving that. And I tell them, saving the girl, it's easy. You think 5 minutes, you go to the brothel, you save once. But after 5 minutes, how you do with this girl? You need how many years? 5 years, 10 years, 20 years to recover them to be a person normal, but they cannot be normal because they have been traumatized, because they have been raped. So how?
There is a popular Cambodian phrase that men are gold and women cloth. It is a saying that has strong currency when describing Cambodia's sex trade, because it underscores a problem stemming from deep-rooted gender inequality that still prevails in Cambodia.
If a man does something that dishonors him or his family, you can simply wipe it off and it becomes clean again. With a girl, once she's been soiled or used or damaged, then you can just throw it away. And I really think it speaks to the issue of the status of women and girls, particularly in Cambodia, but I think it's also a global issue.
The trafficking of women into the sex industry is often tied to entrenched gender constructs that are defined along strong patriarchal lines. The principle of Chi Wapsri, a set of instructions promoting deference and submission to the male members of the family indefinitely, was so entrenched that it formed part of the curriculum in Cambodian schools until only recently.
Even he insult you, look down on you, even he has another woman, you have to accept everything. You have to behave as a good woman. It means that accept everything. So it's the reason why men here go to see a prostitute. It's normal. Some men are married, some men are not, but they go there like they go to a coffee shop taking a drink, you see. So it's very important to change the mentality of the public.
In 1992, the average age of Cambodian prostitutes was 18. This dropped to 17 in the mid-1990s. Today, officials say that the average age of the estimated 20,000 sex workers in Phnom Penh is 15. Shray finally saw reprieve from the torturous misery she endured. She was rescued by undercover officers working in conjunction with the International Justice Mission. Shray is now free from the living hell of forced prostitution. Her recovery, though, is an ongoing process. Shray Knight spent a couple of years in rehabilitation. There, along with other victims who had all gone through the same hellish plight, she was taught life skills and received an education. More importantly, she rediscovered hope and gradually came to find a new optimism about the future.
Freedom without a future is simply another form of slavery, and so if we can give girls sustainable, real, significant, dignified futures, that they ultimately will be the ones that will impact the next generation in seeing crimes like sex trafficking come to an end.
In recent years, significant strides have been made in creating dialogues for action against the blight of child prostitution. This basic awakening has perhaps fostered further momentum for change. New legislation was introduced in 2008 against trafficking and sexual exploitation, a sign that things cannot go on unchecked and the authorities are getting serious about erasing Cambodia's image as a haven for sex tourism. Translating to an end of stories like Shray Knight's in the future.
ការខ្ញុំនៅផ្ទះបនហ្នឹងឲ្យតែគេចុចកណ្ដឹងផ្ទះម្ដងគឺបានន័យថាគេមកហៅយើងហើយបានន័យថាភ្ញៀវគឺត្រូវយើងហើយអញ្ចឹងនៅពេលកន្លែងខ្ញុំធ្វើការក៏ដោយឲ្យតែខ្ញុំឮសំឡេងទូរស័ព្ទរោឬមួយក៏កណ្ដឹងអីផ្សេងៗហ្នឹងវាធ្វើឲ្យខ្ញុំចងចាំរឿងកាលពីមុន
And even if the emotional hurt does subside over time, she would still have to endure the most tragic legacy of her past for the rest of her life. Shray Knight is HIV positive, but keeps alive with the help of antiretroviral drugs. The silver lining in her story, at least, is that her life has since begun a new chapter, one that is considerably brighter and more hopeful than her backstory. She teaches yoga. It helps her to find peace with her injustices. And she plans to use her work, her voice, and her courage to campaign for greater social awareness for the plight of girls like her, many still trapped in the depths of despair.
ខ្ញុំគិតថាខ្ញុំនឹងអាចរស់នៅដូចក្មេងដទៃទៀតពីព្រោះអីខ្ញុំមានការលើកទឹកចិត្តច្រើនខ្ញុំមានក្តីស្រឡាញ់ពីចាមពីដទៃទៀតដែលមានជីវិតដូចខ្ញុំហ្នឹងខ្ញុំគិតថាគេក៏អាចរស់បានដូចជាខ្ញុំដែរពេលដែលពួកគេមានទុក្ខលំបាកឬមួយក៏គេចងចាំនៅរឿងគេពីមុនគេមើលឃើញនៃការផ្ដល់ក្តីស្រឡាញ់ឲ្យពួកគេអ្នកដែលជិតខាងឬមួយក៏អ្នកជុំវិញពួកគេផ្ដល់ក្តីស្រឡាញ់ឲ្យពួកគេហើយពួកគេមានទឹកចិត្តពួកគេមានស្មារតីខំប្រឹងរៀនជាងមុន
Sex trafficking is not the only issue Cambodian society is grappling with, but it remains interwoven with a host of cultural and structural injustices. It is a window to a social system torn apart by decades of unrest, poverty, and human discontent. Played out in episodes of personal tragedy, like Shray Knight's, and thousands like her.
If we can address the issue of sex trafficking, we may be able to address some of the other issues. I think as we're addressing sex trafficking, people are more aware that there are fewer opportunities for women, that the status of girls and women is lower, and so it's bringing greater attention to the issues of poverty and education, job opportunities, as well as the issues of law, government, and structure.
By the time she celebrated her 15th birthday, Shray Knight had seen a lifetime's worth of physical and emotional torment, played out through recurring episodes of misery throughout her days and nights. In the darkest depths of her despair, Shray Knight began to search her soul.
ខឹងម៉ាក់ខ្ញុំដែរប៉ុន្តែខ្ញុំគិតយូរទៅគាត់គឺជាម៉ាក់បង្កើតរបស់យើងហើយណាមួយខ្ញុំមិនទាន់បានសងគុណគាត់ទេបើគាត់ធ្វើអញ្ចឹងដាក់ខ្ញុំបានម្ដងហើយចាប់ទុកថាខ្ញុំសងគុណគាត់ម្ដងហ្នឹង
These heartbreaking stories will continue to be written in the dark recesses of the Cambodian sex trade. It is a pipe dream to hope for the elimination of prostitution. But the continued push by civil society could help curtail the wretched exploitation of the youngest among us in the oldest of mankind's professions.
तुम्हें यकीन है यही जगह है?
हाँ बबली हम सही रास्ते पर हैं बस पहुंचने ही वाले हैं थोड़ी देर में
मुझे बहुत डर लग रहा है
वो दिख रहा है वहाँ पर जाना है डरने की कोई बात ही नहीं है चलो बस चलते हैं
A life on the run. Manoj and his wife Babli have been living in exile for about a year. That is, if you can call facing the spectre of death on a daily basis living. And their offense was falling in love. India, ever the land of paradoxes, continues to struggle with opposing pulls upon its social fabric. With globalization, it's becoming the darling of entrepreneurs and one of the fastest growing economies in the world. Still, while a growing contingent of middle-class Indians basks in newfound prosperity, much of mainstream India remains bound by traditions that are centuries old. Alongside a thriving new India is an old India that clings on to deep-rooted social and spiritual consciousness. Haryana is one of the most economically successful states in India, a bustling hub of IT and business process outsourcing. Yet beyond its city limits, Haryana's hinterland reveals a starkly different picture. A perfect portrait displaying a culture torn between new ideals and old values. Haryana means God's home, as described by its Sanskrit name. The state is a cradle of culture and civilization, inhabited by a people influenced profoundly by ancient codes and principles. At the forefront of these principles is a belief in righteousness and duty, as opposed to self-determination.
टन टना टन 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 तारा चलती है क्या 9 से 12 रात के शो की 2 टिकटें हैं पिक्चर तुम्हें दिखाऊं
ए तुम्हें क्या लगता है शहर कैसा होगा?
बार से दिल नहीं भरता मुड़ के देख मुझे दोबारा।
क्या तुम कभी सपने नहीं देखते?
देखता हूँ मगर एक कि अपनी जिंदगी मन मुताबिक जी सकूं
और
कि शादी उससे करूं जिससे मैं प्यार करता हूं।
Manoj and Babli were school chums who shared common dreams of life outside the confines of their tiny village.
अच्छा फिर ये फिर अपना किसी का सामान जाए करदा भी बुलाया कर ले जा कर दे तो बबली फोन कर दिया कर दे हमारे घर पर तो हमने मना भी कराया तो मानने नहीं हुआ बबली तो फिर मैं उनका घर भी जाकर आई बबली और का उसकी माता मिल कर आई कि भाई गांव में ऐसी ऐसी बात ठीक नहीं होती तो बबली ने समझा दे तो कुछ हो गया तो फिर मार ऊपर पड़ेगी फिर उसने ये समझा ही नहीं फिर मैं अपना मन मर्जी तो बाहर भी गई।
Even in the sphere of private life, particularly in human relationships, Indian society to a large extent still adheres to old traditions. A great majority of marriages here are still arranged, and there are deeply entrenched cultural and sociological underpinnings for this. The principle of arranged marriages is based on the belief that it engenders cultural stability. But beyond this basic tenet has evolved strong traditions of caste endogamy, which dictate a strict principle of marrying only within one's caste. With even greater emphasis is the principle of clan exogamy. Boys and girls from the same clan or gotra are forbidden to marry. The belief that all clan members can trace their ancestry to the same lineage, making for a potentially incestuous union. The prohibitions against same gotra marriages continue to hold currency today, thousands of years after they were conceived. These social yardsticks are strictly enforced by traditional authorities, clan leaders known as Kap Panchayat. In Haryana especially, they are overindulgent in policing same gotra marriages.
They have certain mobilizing strategies. For instance, they give the very highly emotive issues like family in danger, kins in danger, caste in danger, community in danger. In that lies their strength, because they can evoke a lot of sentiments against certain people.
The Kap Panchayats are notorious for resorting to very extreme measures in guarding against what they perceive to be cultural transgressions. Despite being aware of the potential consequences, Manoj and Babli could not bear to be apart.
पसंद तो भी ये जो प्यारो है वो तो होना ही है पसंद है सारी लाले उसकी उनकी खूबी सारी पसंद है आपस में उनकी मिलकी कुंडली तो उनकी जोड़ी बहुत अच्छी थी तो भगवान ने उनकी जोड़ी मिला दी बस इसी तो भगवान किसी की भी नहीं मिला, बहुत जोड़ी बढ़िया थी उनकी, देखो राम सीता की थी, हैं? ये तो भगवान ने उनकी जोड़ी हूँ बहन भाई का उसमें वो कर दिया, नहीं तो भगवान ने उनकी जोड़ी मिलानी थी।
Manoj and Babli would soon find themselves entwined in a love affair that seemed destined for disaster. School friends from the same clan and village in Haryana, Manoj and Babli were, over time, smitten by Cupid's arrow and ended up childhood sweethearts. The star-crossed lovers booked a one-way ticket to the capital city, Chandigarh, where, free from the prying eyes of fellow villagers, they sought to start a new chapter in their lives as husband and wife. By morning, their absence had already attracted the attention of curious villagers.
तो फिर ये पता नहीं था कि भाई ये दिन देखने पड़ेंगे, तो भाई ऐसे ऐसे बन जाएगी बात हमारे साथ, ये पता नहीं था हमने। ये पता होता तो हमें अपना और कोशिश करते कि भाई समझाते उनको, हैं, तो मान भी जाते। फिर हमने ये नहीं पता था कि भाई ये पसंद करके भाई बाहर चले जाएंगे और भाई शादी कर लेंगे।
In the summer of 2007, Manoj and Babli married in a simple state ceremony.
ज़्यादा नहीं है, मगर अपना घर है।
What was supposed to be a fairy tale ending to their secret love affair was crushed by tragedy, months shy of their first wedding anniversary. Their bodies were found by an old canal, just minutes away from their old village, the epicenter of all their troubles. Manoj and Babli were victims of an honor killing, but perhaps they did not die in vain. Manoj's mother, Chandapati, and sister Seema chose not to let the issue rest.
एक तो अगर हम चुप बैठ जाते, डर के या पैसे लेके बैठ जाते, तो इससे क्या होता, जो ये मारने वाले हैं अब तो सज़ा होने के बाद भी नहीं रुक रहे हैं हमारे यहाँ लोगों को, जो ये मारने वाला सिलसिला है लड़का लड़की को, और अगर सज़ा भी नहीं होती, चुपचाप बैठ जाते तो क्या होता।
The so-called honor killing of Manoj and Babli was by no means an isolated incident. Honor killings, a euphemistic term for murder by clan members, are committed in the name of redeeming a community's honor. While figures are inconclusive, it is estimated by the Indian Democratic Women's Association that there are 1,000 honor killings committed every year in India. Once Manoj's family brought the case to the public domain, the story of Manoj and Babli seemed to mobilize public opinion. Women's groups began to rally against what they saw as arcane prohibitions and repressive traditions. Among them was Jagmati Sangwan, a social activist who had worked together with Manoj's family in bringing the issue to light.
Specifically, you see, in our state, it is comparatively a forward-looking and economically quite a progressive state. But at the same time, the literacy rate in the common people, it is only 55%. There are still 45% who could not get the opportunity to get the education. In that given context, these people who never came in the, you say, modern society in that way to get their ideas changed, they are there who are against the right to choice marriage, and under the pressure from certain corners, they opt for violence also.
The story began in the winter of 2007, when Manoj and Babli settled into their new home at Chandigarh and their new lives as husband and wife. But the honeymoon was not to last long. Manoj and Babli had to contend with the constant fear lurking inside them.
मैंने तुझे कहीं देखा हुआ है? हाँ? माफ कीजिए,
कौन से गांव से तू? कौन से गांव से? यहाँ पे तू छुप सकता है, भाग नहीं सकता। ध्यान रखना तू, ओके?
The Cap pursued Manoj on all fronts. When Manoj was in hiding, they stalked his home and aired their grievances to his family.
दरवाजा खोल दे, हमें मालूम है तू अंदर है। दरवाजा खोल दे वरना तोड़ देंगे हम।
चलो चलो देखे किधर है हम।
इनका भी भगाने में हाथ है और हमारी लड़की है ना नाबालिग है और ये उसको मतलब मनोज इनका लड़का है वो भगा के लेके गया। फिर उसके बाद इन्होंने पुलिस पे भी प्रेशर डाला कि जब इनके खिलाफ FIR है माँ बेटी के खिलाफ, इनका भगाने में आता है तो आप इनको गिरफ्तार क्यों नहीं कर रहे?
को ना चारा भी तो ना छोड़े ये लोग।
Cap panchayats have long enjoyed a locus of power within their communities. While economic change, egalitarian political representation, and population movement is slowly beginning to render their traditional mandate redundant, these groups, especially the more hardline ones, resort to extreme measures to assert their dominance.
See, the problem is not two Indias. The problem is the flux in the society. We are changing, and unfortunately, or fortunately, the economy has changed more rapidly and drastically than our social attitudes.
Prem Chowdhury is one of the fiercest critics of Cap panchayats. She believes that while customs need to be preserved, they should ultimately keep in tune with the changing times.
Now, if you have laws which are saying contrary to what the custom is saying, and laws which are healthier, which take cognizance of your constitution, your human rights, your civil rights, and so on, it is only right that they should be followed, and nobody should be allowed to impose a custom on them which is being defied in any case. So it's this kind of attitude needs certainly to be changed, wherever it is.
Even though Manoj and Babli had moved many miles from their village, they remained unsafe, perpetually hunted on many fronts. Gradually, their plan for a peaceful, happy life together was beginning to unravel. Even in a rapidly modernizing India, centuries-old codes of marriage continue to be observed. Manoj and Babli were judged by clan leaders to have breached the code of clan exogamy, forbidding members of the same clan from marrying.
तुम्हें पता है वो क्या कहते हैं?
क्या कहते हैं?
कि तुम छोरी को गांव से निकाल सकते हो मगर
गांव से छोरी को नहीं निकाल सकते।
बिल्कुल सही।
The principle was established in ancient times to prevent incestuous unions. Through the years, shifting attitudes and a much broader gene pool challenged the social relevance of these marriage prohibitions and the traditional authorities that policed them. When Manoj eloped with Babli, back home in his hometown, the Cap Panchayat turned their attention to his mother. They sought information about the couple's whereabouts, even though she was equally in the dark.
अरे बाढ़ में मत कहियो, तेरे को समझाने नहीं आए थे हम, बोल रहे हैं अभी।
सर हमने कोई बदतमीजी करनी नहीं चाहिए।
Eventually, after a year of hiding, racked by guilt and threats, Manoj and Babli actually turned themselves in to the authorities. Babli readily admitted she married out of her own free will.
मतलब बस प्यार ही तो करते थे। इनकी माँ बहन ने पहले शादी के लिए मना कर दिया। अब इनके भाई हमारे पीछे गुंडे भिजवा के पड़े।
The court, satisfied with the explanations, ordered police protection. The ordeal seemed finally over, but the happy ending was not to be, as Cup leaders were determined to have justice, as they saw it, done in their own inimitable way. The couple was traveling on a bus back to their home when they were abandoned by their escorts, leaving them as sitting ducks for potential disaster.
मुझे नहीं लगता मैं ऐसे भाग पाऊंगी।
बस आने ही वाली होगी।
हम कितनी देर तक ऐसे भागते रहेंगे? इससे अच्छा वो हमें मार ही देते।
सब सही हो जाएगा। सब कुछ सही हो जाएगा, बस कुछ दिनों की बात है पगली। उसके बाद आराम की जिंदगी है।
They were intercepted a mere 20 kilometers from their hometown. Then they faced the inevitable.
अपनी बहन के बारे में साले ऐसे बात करते शर्म नहीं आती तुझको? अबे चुप पोरे, तू क्या समझता है? तेरी मोहब्बत जीत जाएगी? हाँ? अबे रोमियो, अबे लेके आ इसको, चला, ये, चल अबे, क्या जी आइए?
According to court accounts, Babli was forced to drink poison,
प्रायश्चित हो जाएगा तेरे पापों का.
delaying the onset of death just enough for her to witness Manoj's brutal execution. In choosing to live their lives together, Manoj and Babli sealed their fate. They were finally joined in the heavens. Enraged by the cup's brutal measures, Manoj's family resolved to pursue the matter with the authorities, an action that resulted in them being boycotted by the entire village. In the meantime, however, widespread grassroots support everywhere piqued the interest of the media. Manoj's family would finally come to have their day in court.
ये संशोधन हो या ना हो वो आगे की बात है, लेकिन ये लोगों को मारना ये कहाँ तक जायज़ है? ये तो जायज़ नहीं है ना कि अपनी सोच के चलते अपनी सोच ना बदलें, उसके अपनी सोच बदलना नहीं चाहते और उसके बदले में मतलब अपने बच्चों को, जिनको शुरू से बचपन से लेके इतना बड़ा किया, पढ़ाया लिखाया, और उसको अपनी एक मतलब थोड़ी सी जो एक अहम ही है कि हम झुकना नहीं चाहते, उसके चलते अपने बच्चों की बलियां देते जा रहे हैं और रुकने का नाम ही नहीं ले रही ये घटनाएं। तो अब कानून को थोड़ा मतलब वो थोड़ा वो बनाना पड़ेगा ताकि इन पर रोक लगे।
मौसी सुनो, अरे हमने जो किया वो सिर्फ गांव की भलाई के लिए किया, अरे हमारा कोई उसमें पर्सनल स्वार्थ थोड़ी था।
Faced with mounting opposition to their cause, the Cups envisaged fighting a losing battle in court. Backpedaling and desperate, they approached Chandapati to have the case quashed.
हमने हमारा लड़का चाहिए, तो हमारा लड़का और हमारी बहू दे दो तो हमें समझौता कर लेंगे, नहीं हमें कर दे कोई नहीं, ना हमें पीछे लन दे। अब दूसरे दिन आके पंचायत बैठ जा कर दे, ना हमें पीछा के भूखे, ना हमें हमारा छोरा बहू दे दो तो हम समझौता कर लेंगे, नहीं फिर हम समझौता नहीं करते। बहुत दबाव डालेगा कि भाई हम पैसे दे, हमने पैसा की लोड़े नहीं मुका, हमें तो सीधे अपना जो कुछ कोर्ट करेगी उस पर हमने भरोसा है वह करेगी।
The long-drawn trial made headlines. 41 witnesses were deposed over 50 hearings, stretching over a period of 33 months, before justice was handed out. The perpetrators, including relatives of Babli, even her own brother, were arrested and sentenced to hang.
It's very significant verdict. It will send signals at the large masses level that if you are going to adopt the violent measures to tackle this issue, then there is also a law and order machinery and you will be also punished and taken to the task. And it will have very positive impact, and the impact has started already coming up, that so many couples who performed their marriage according to their choice, they are coming forward to seek the help from law and order machinery that see, here is a violence and we need your protection. We are very, very hopeful and we are definitely watching the change after this verdict.
The times seem to be changing in rural North India, an environment where traditional power hierarchies once freely took the law into their own hands. But it will take a long time for honor killings to be relegated to the rubbish heap of arcane practices. Cases are even rising, as statistics show. As for Chandapati and Seema, they will forever have to endure the pain of their loss.
जब जाके मेरा न्यू चाहन आओगी, मेरी आँखों का सामने लटक जाए, जब मेरे दिल में नहीं होगी, जब मेरा चाहन आओगी तो नहीं। वो तो चलो उन्हें ठीक कराया भाई, अपनी पसंद थी, शादी कर ली तो ठीक हुआ, तो उनको भी जीने का था। ये गांव वाले ने ये बहुत बुरी गलत बात करी उनके साथ कि भाई उनका मर्डर कर दिया, तो उनको जीने का हक था।
कि ये
Through their fervent actions in seeking justice, these women serve as oracles for a rising tide of change happening in India. A tide that lifts the spirits of the vulnerable and the oppressed, to now march bravely and to the beat of a different drummer.